Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Live TV Ratings Talk. I'm Brandon Thurston, broadcasting live and on demand from Buffalo, New York, where today is Thursday, April the 14th. Almost got it right this time. 2022. On April 14th, 2001, Toshiaki Kawada and Keiji Muto had their first ever singles match in All Japan Pro Wrestling. Shining Wizard time. Here we have a scoreboard with the Dynamite rating showing a division by zero error. We will update it now. Before our eyes. It will update. Eventually. Eventually, it will update. There it is. Dynamite did 977,000 viewers. The music is still going. Dynamite did 977,000 viewers last night on TNT. 486,000 of those viewers in the demo. A 0.37, down from the prior week. The lowest since March 2nd, but pretty normal relative to where it's been. If you look at the line chart, pretty normal in total viewership relative to where it's been. The demo, pretty normal relative to where it's been. We may do something different today. I will go through all of the quarter hours for the week. I will go through all of the YouTube views, highlights of those weekly shows for the week. And we will assess who's a draw or something like that. So let's see here. We will, if we look at where the whole episode shows the whole episode viewership for each show. Smackdown still running on some of the fumes of WrestleMania. Raw still about the same. I thought the Raw, especially the younger viewership in Raw, was pretty good. We'll talk about that. Rampage recovered nicely. It's the biggest pop that Rampage has seen in quite a while after a long pattern of decline. Dynamite, a very normal rating. NXT, kind of a weak rating. Impact looks like a weak rating. New Japan looks like a better than normal rating. So what we have here with Dynamite is we are now, actually, speaking of anniversaries, it has been 1 year to the day, I think. Or was it yesterday? It's been 1 year since the end of the Wednesday Night War. The war finally ended 1 year ago. And now we are making year-over-year comparisons for Dynamite, comparing itself to unopposed times on Wednesday night, where it was not going against NXT. So what we have here is the first, it's probably not the first time that Dynamite has been down year over year, but Dynamite is down versus the same week of the prior year in the demo, where it did this on this first Wednesday unopposed, post-war Wednesday, where it did, looks like something around 570,000 viewers a week ago today, this week, in the demo, and doing nearly 1.2 million viewers, or maybe it did do 1.2 million viewers, doing under 1 million viewers last night. We will get to the demo, get to the quarter hours. The leading YouTube clip, as of right now, or as of 4 p.m., as of an hour ago, is the I want to say his name correctly. It's let's look at the quarters here. Where's the Dynamite quarters? Satnam Singh is the leading YouTube clip by a fair margin here. We've got this exclusive from the Blackpool Combat Club and CM Punk and Penta, about 100,000 behind on a similar timeline. The quarter hours. The leading quarter hour, as usual, is quarter hour 1, and then followed by that, quarter hour 2. Quarter hour 2 is the leader in the demo. This show opened with CM Punk versus Penta Oscuro. I keep wanting to say Obscuro. The second quarter had 4 more minutes of that match between Punk and Penta. It had the Jericho Appreciation Society promo on the plane. It had the tag title match, most of it, maybe about half of it, I don't know, between Red Dragon and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. So those are the leaders. Did we see any strong growth from quarter to quarter here? We did have a 2-minute overrun that I had to spend so much time on this spreadsheet in particular. 2-minute overrun. First time Dynamite has ever had an overrun. I had to add rows to my spreadsheet. It was a whole ordeal. I had to fix all my charts. But 2 minutes, TNT gave Dynamite. And in those last 2 minutes, the viewership was up 7% versus the last whole quarter of the show. It was up 2% in the demo. Those last 2 minutes totally involving that angle with the debut of Satnam Singh attacking Samoa Joe along with Sanjay Dutt and Jay Lethal. Any exceptional growth here? The final quarter did grow 3% in the demo, 1% total. Last quarter of the first hour, which was largely the MJF match with Shawn Dean, the Wardlow angle, a Darby Allin video, a commercial break, a Malachi Black promo, and entrances for the 6-man that would follow. That quarter at 8:45 did grow the audience by 3% and 1% in the demo. This, I should show you, this chart with the trend of the quarter hours for last night. There are supposed to be trend lines behind this, and I've learned now that I should probably just make the actual viewership line smaller so that you can see the trend line that is supposed to be behind it. And this nearly perfectly follows the trend line, what I call the composite trend of the last 4 weeks, where I'm, to make a long story short, looking at the last 4 weeks, taking the median of the change quarter to quarter to say this is what it should be, given your position on the show across the 2 hours. Apparently has so much to do with what the viewership does that's definitely worth looking at. And if we make it smaller for the demo is a little bit more off the trail, especially towards the end, and it's under what the trend line is. So you could say that this show held on to the viewership in the demo a little bit weaker than usual. And we also have this wild chart here, which looks at the non-demo and the demo. Largely the same story. So that's the quarter hours for Dynamite. These are the YouTube clips, which I think are more informative and a cleaner look if you're trying to see what segment here was successful. Satnam Singh, maybe an appeal to the Indian audience. And we know that there's a lot of Indian viewership coming from, I don't know if viewership is the right word, but a lot of Indian engagement coming from YouTube. So that could be playing a role there. But we could say that the CM Punk and Penta clip, that's got some interest on YouTube. And then what is the purple here? The exclusive here from Blackpool Combat Club, Ricky Starks on his win and more. So that's not even a highlight of the show itself, but it sounds like I've not watched it. It sounds like something that they put on YouTube special, exclusively. Everything else, Dynamite rolls out their clips a lot slower, and they stagger the release times compared to something like Raw, where everything is released roughly at the same time, pretty soon after the show ends. Not to get ahead of ourselves, as we noted in the quarter hours, we see that these first 2 quarters did especially well. Well, that's probably in large part thanks to the Big Bang Theory. Here's what the Big Bang Theory has been doing. We're always 2 weeks behind, because that's the newest information that we have, courtesy of ratingsryan.com, where we can see that there's a correlation. There's a fairly strong correlation between what the Big Bang Theory does, especially in total viewership, especially in that first quarter, compared to what Dynamite does. So that's what the trend line looks like for the Big Bang Theory at 7:30 and Dynamite. This is since the debut of Dynamite on TBS. I said TNT earlier. TNT gave Dynamite the overrun. TBS, well, it's all the same people. in the demo, this is what it looks like. The demo is more volatile, or maybe I'm just zooming in on it more tightly. In any case, there's some correlation here. How do we know that? This is how we know that. Now I'm going to bore you. The correlation, basically the higher the number is here, the stronger the correlation. The results are what you would expect it to be. Big Bang Theory in the demo correlates somewhat strong with Dynamite as a whole. This is a 1.00 would be an absolutely perfect relationship. So this is a sort of a weak relationship. It gets stronger when we look at total viewership for Big Bang Theory at 7:30 versus the entire episode of Dynamite. It gets a little bit stronger. Then, of course, it gets a little bit stronger if we look at just Core Hour 1. And in fact, Core Hour 1 correlates just as well to total viewership as it does the demo. So it's not just total viewership that's getting helped, perhaps, by the Big Bang Theory and its large audience, one of the biggest rerun series on all of television. Anyway, and if we look at just Core Hour 1, the relationship is even stronger, and it's stronger with total viewership than it is in the demo. So there's that. This is also R squared, but it's largely the same story. That's Dynamite. Is there anything else to say about Dynamite? I don't think so. These are the most watched. I know this is TV ratings talk. This is a media podcast, not just a wrestling podcast, not just a TV ratings podcast, or whatever this is. It's a podcast. You're watching it on YouTube right now. But anyway, these are all the most viewed clips for the last 7 days. My dog is barking. These are all the most viewed clips for the last 7 days between WWE and AEW. There's no other wrestling company that's in this realm here. These are, I think this is the top 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Roman Reigns is the big dog, the needle mover. 2.36 million views Roman Reigns drew on YouTube for ordering the Usos to unify the tag titles. I'm gonna close the door. Be right back. Everything okay out there? Everything okay? I'm gonna close the door. Okay, I have returned. Roman Reigns is at the top of the YouTube clips. Wheeler, Utah, bleeding, blood and guts and things of that nature with Jon Moxley is the number 2 clip. This is new content. We should note that I believe all of the WWE clips are on a 24-hour delay on YouTube in India. The rest of the world gets them really quick. Now you could say, hey, look, too. AEW staggering these clips out. Not in the case of this clip, though. I think this Utah clip from Rampage was out there pretty quickly after the broadcast. And everything else is pretty well behind, but we've got quite a few others with over 1 million views at this point. Some of them are just the top 10 moments of SmackDown or Raw, but also the Cody and Miz match. Highlights of that with 1.3 million views. Bobby Lashley takes over the VIP lounge. Charlotte Flair refuses to take on Ronda Rousey. Sonya Deville takes out Bianca Belair to get a Raw Women's title match with just under, a hair under 1 million views as of 1 p.m. Might be over 1 million by now. Who knows? So that's interesting and meaningful. As far as I think it tells you a much cleaner story about quarter hours. I've been thinking, I could post this, and this would, I think this is more meaningful, but this will not get the social media engagement that quarter hours will, because quarter hours are a brand, I guess, and people hear quarter hours and think they can look at the quarter hours and tell who's a draw because the viewership went up for their segment, and who's not a draw, an anti-draw, because the viewership went down for their segment, when actually there are numerous external factors that make deriving meaning from quarter hours difficult. And I think that meaning that they're looking for is more clearly, not perfectly, but more clearly illustrated in the YouTube views, even though there's a massive difference between the money that's generated on YouTube versus the money that's generated on television. But anyway, there's that. WWE's ratings have been pretty good. We've got an upward trend. Yes, we have a positive slope for Raw in its margin of victory over AEW Dynamite. Also for SmackDown, positive, not as positive as Raw, but positive. The war between WWE and AEW, a little bit of sway here, some sway happening towards the WWE side. There have been times though where Raw has or WWE has increased their lead. When were those times? Was it around WrestleMania season last year? Not really. We see the decline. And this WrestleMania season was followed last year by Dynamite being relieved of competition from NXT. So that's a lot of what this downward trend in Raw and SmackDown's margin over Dynamite is about here. But there have been times, I guess, the fall of 2020, Raw and SmackDown gained in their lead over Dynamite in the same week. Somewhat in the lead up to WrestleMania last year, actually. So seasonality would tell us that, maybe this will peak here. Although, like I said, now we're into immediate post Wednesday Night War period here. So I don't know what will happen, but we will watch it. Raw this week. Raw down year over year in the same week, in total viewership down year over year. Nonetheless, I thought this was a decent rating for Raw. Why? If we look back over the last 4 weeks, and the week prior was the post-WrestleMania episode, and it did the highest, I believe, total viewership or the demo. It did one of those, the highest in more than a year, going back to January 4th, 2021, the Legends episode. So what we've got here is the demo is still up versus the last 4 weeks. The younger half of the demo is up 16%. The older half of the demo is down 3%. The younger half of the demo being up is interesting. Same things happening over here for Dynamite, up 18%, older half of the demo down 13%. Why would that be? Maybe it's just random. Maybe there's no real meaning to it. I'm tempted to think that younger people tend to be more online, tend to be maybe more paying attention to what the wrestling media is interested in or what people are responding to online. And I think in Raw's case, I'm tempted to think that it's Cody and the YouTube clips. No doubt YouTube clips are going to be a younger audience as well. The top performing clips are Reigns, and then after that, it's Yuta and Moxley, and then after that, it's Cody and Miz. There's that. So that's the most highly performing clip from Raw this week is Cody and Miz. In the case of Dynamite, I'm tempted to think it has something to do with maybe the Joe and Minoru Suzuki match, maybe the Punk and Penta. So we don't know what the Punk and Penta match, is that out yet? We didn't. I'm sorry, it is, but is the Suzuki and Joe match, are clips of that specifically out? And maybe they're just encapsulated in this video that has the Satnam Singh debut. I don't know. And maybe there won't be a clip just for that match. In any event, NXT. Let's see. NXT, before we look at the YouTube, I haven't looked at do you want to look at the quarter hours for Raw? These are the quarter hours for Raw, or are they? These don't look like filled in quarters. Maybe it's in this other spreadsheet I have over here. It's not in that one either, is it? Well, I did publish them. They are on the Wrestlenomics Patreon, so we'll pull them out from there. We will look at them. We will give you a free preview of the Wrestlenomics Patreon here by looking at the quarter hour report from April 11th for Raw. We will even put it on the screen here. That's not the quarter hours. That's the actual full report. Where are the quarter hours for Raw? There they are. quarter hours for April 11th for Raw. And there we go. And we have the most viewed quarter is the Owens. The most viewed quarter had a lot of stuff in it that's not very long. It had a fairly short backstage promo between Kevin Owens, Tommaso Ciampa, Ezekiel. It had an ad break in it, and it had Liv Morgan and Naomi, which was not the longest match, and it entirely took place in this quarter. Nonetheless, 2 million viewers. It was the most watched, both in total viewership and in the demo. 795 million viewers in the demo, the equivalent to a 0.61 in the demo. Now, the quarter that happened before it also did well, and I believe it was the second most viewed. I believe so. Maybe not quite. The following quarter here at 9:30 has a little more. Anyway, this quarter, the 9 o'clock quarter, grew the audience by 13% in the demo, 8% in total viewership. It had Cody Rhodes and The Miz in it, the entirety of the match, and the post-match angle with Seth Rollins. So, there's that. I think the Cody and Miz match, I think there's some real meaning there, right? So my winners here, Cody Rhodes and Miz. We gotta give Miz some credit here. And we'll look at SmackDown, and we'll look at Rampage and Dynamite. I don't know who wins in Dynamite, but NXT down year over year in total viewership, down quite a bit year over year in the demo. This was the lowest demo, I believe, since January for NXT. Did a 0.12 in the demo, if I'm not mistaken. A 0.12 in the demo. 151,000 viewers between the ages of 18 and 49. And where are the quarters for NXT? Is there meaning to derive here? Well, the most viewed quarter was, in terms of total viewership, and if we're excluding the overrun, the most viewed quarter in terms of total viewership, in terms of the demo, is this 9 o'clock quarter, which included the conclusion, the last 3 minutes of Mandy Rose and Dakota Kai. Also had a Joe Gacy video, an ad break, Tony D'Angelo, Legado del Fantasma backstage segment, and the first part of the Cora Jade live promo that eventually she would be joined by Natalya. Some good growth in viewership as the program went on in this first hour. But according to my formulas here, these quarters outperformed the usual trend in the time course. So, and that is the Q3, Q4, and that is most of the Mandy Rose Dakota Kai match, and this other quarter that happened before it, which has, I mean, these NXT quarters are just tons of stuff and short segments. But this was a Toxic Attraction backstage segment, a Jacket Time and Von Wagner backstage segment, an ad break, a short Von Wagner and Ikemenjiro match, and a Nikita Lyons promo. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, the Nikita Lyons promo did fairly well on YouTube. Did it not? No, maybe not. Is it even up there? What am I even thinking of? No, it did not. But anyway, the leading YouTube clip is the Mandy Rose and Dakota Kai match, by far. Almost twice as many views as of 1 p.m. today. Almost twice as many views as the next closest highlight, which we've got a few that are in the 150 range. The Cora Jade meets one of her WWE idols. My God, she's happy to be there. The Boat, which is Natalya, puts the NXT Women's Division on notice, and then the overrun moment with the Creed brothers and Pretty Deadly, the conclusion of the Gauntlet tag team match, and that was the leader in the demo with 190,000 viewers. So how high did this get? 0.15 in the demo. So there's that. There's NXT. I think that's all to say about NXT. SmackDown and Rampage. As I mentioned earlier, Rampage popping as far as a week where it was much higher than the preceding weeks, outside of course, the CM Punk debut here. This was a pretty big jump. I don't know why. What was on this show? If we look at the quarter hours and go to Rampage, we've got what here? Bryan Danielson versus Trent Beretta. We've got some backstage stuff, some promos. Swerve Strickland versus QT Marshall. We've got a Red Velvet and Will Nightingale match. And we've got the main event between Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta. As you can see from the trend lines here, well above what the trend line usually is. And in fact, what happens usually is it's late, starts at 10 p.m. As time goes on, what usually happens is it starts kind of big in the first 15 minutes, and then it goes down in the next quarter, and then it stays flat for the rest of the quarter. And this outperformed that. Total viewership was up not from Q1, almost equal in total viewership, essentially equal, 616,000 viewers, 615,000 viewers from Q1 to Q4. And demo not that close to the Q1 demo for the main event, but the demo up. So usually the viewership does not grow for Rampage as the night goes on, much at all, but this did. And for some reason, my magic formula is not giving Wheeler Yuta and Jon Moxley credit, though. So there's that. These are the clips for, let's look at Rampage first. I get by far 1.96 million views for the Yuta and Moxley match, followed by Danielson and Beretta, followed by Sammy Guevara won't stop until he gets his hands on Scorpio Sky's TNT title. So that bloody match and probably the bloody thumbnail helping a lot. For SmackDown, we don't have year-over-year trends for Rampage yet. In August, we will. Year-over-year trends for SmackDown. SmackDown is up or equal to a year ago in total viewership. In the demo, comparable. Not many shows you can say that about. And coming up on Dynamite, comparing itself to what it did the year before, Dynamite's going to be cutting it close. In fact, if we look at this thing over here, we will see that in the demo, Dynamite's up 6%. But if we look, this is probably off screen, but if we look here, Dynamite in a year-over-year trend is down 1% across. This is the second episode of April. Yeah, 13th and the 6th. Dynamite, in terms of total viewership, currently is down very slightly, 1%. But still up in the demo, up by 6%. Has Dynamite ever been down? It was down in January compared to the January of the prior year in 2021. Anyway, that's SmackDown. SmackDown quarters are here. And what do we see in the table here? We make this bigger. We see the leading quarter was the opening quarter with a fairly long WrestleMania video. Ronda Rousey live promo. Sheamus, Butch, and Ridge Holland backstage. So mostly a Ronda Rousey live promo with 2.3 million viewers. And that was the lead in total viewership. The lead in the demo was the 8:45 quarter with Gunther and Joe Alonzo, Gunther's debut. That also had a pretty short Los Lotharios and Raquel Rodriguez, don't call her Raquel Gonzalez, segment. A recap of WrestleMania between the Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin thing, and then a Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss live promo. That was the lead in the demo. Grew the demo by 8%. And my formula says give that credit because it grew the audience more than it usually grows. And that should be evident here. The second hour of the show really underperformed the usual trend compared to the last 4 weeks. The demo did get back up to the normal level by the end of the program with Roman Reigns and Shinsuke Nakamura. What was on television as the demo and as total viewership so underperformed here? Jinder Mahal. So at 9 p.m. we have Jinder Mahal, Adam Pearce, and Ronda Rousey backstage, and an ad break. That's it. I must have left something out here. Anyway, and then the following segment has Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre in a match, a WrestleMania recap, Austin Vince Theory video. This is a video recap of WrestleMania, a Lacey Evans promo. Then the second to last quarter has Sasha Banks versus Liv Morgan, a Reigns entrance, and another WrestleMania recap. A lot of videos on this episode of SmackDown. It was somewhat the case for Raw too. Anyway, there's that. It's been 30 minutes. That's about what it takes me to go through all these shows here. As you know, all TV is down. I'm going to lecture you on. I'm just reading some of the comments. I will try to make the court hours bigger. As you know, all TV is down. I'm going to lecture you on the state of media now. I made this chart this week, which I think is a pretty good representation of what actually matters for TV ratings. We talk about all these numbers, and probably a lot of them go over your head and mine as well. But this is what really matters in terms of the ratings. When it comes to TV rights value, things matter other than the TV ratings, including your ad rates, including what synergies and what viewership you can drive to other programs. That's why whatever that cooking show was hyped so heavily. Maybe that's why there was an overrun last night for Dynamite. That's why the Ms. and Mrs. is on the USA Network. That's why the Roads to Stanford, the Roads to the Top was on TNT, and so forth. So these are the trend. What are we looking at on the screen here? We're looking at what it's called the 90-day moving average for the weekly. Oh my God, there's so many qualifiers here. The 90-day moving average for the weekly P1849 ranking among cable originals and broadcast primetime. In other words, this is the Showbuzz Daily data. People listening might be familiar with Showbuzz Daily. This is all the data that we get from Showbuzz Daily every day. I put it into a week, grouped it by week, and then I said, where was your rank among almost all of TV? We don't have cable reruns in here. We don't have anything in syndication. But it's a pretty big chunk of television. I would venture to guess most of it, especially when we're talking about things that rank highly. No Big Bang Theory reruns. No Yellowstone reruns. Yellowstone first runs, though, yes. Anyway, take all of that programming for each week and say, where did you rank among cable originals and among broadcast primetime? And let's measure that for every week. And then let's measure that, your moving average, across 90 days. Why moving average? Because this is a terrible graph to look at if we don't do a moving average. It's all jagged and hard to look at, and hard to distinguish what's happening. But if we do a moving average, what we see is, as you would expect, Raw and SmackDown are the top performing shows, especially in the Wednesday Night War, where there's a good, healthy gap between Dynamite and NXT. In fact, Dynamite and NXT start out at about the same place. Remember, this is a 90-day moving average, so it takes 90 days for you to start appearing on this chart. And we see at the very beginning of that time, NXT and Dynamite start out at a very similar place. Even I would tell you, though, NXT is a little bit above. Maybe it's helped by that September period where they had 2 weeks unopposed. I think I included that. But anyway, they start out equal, and then the gap quickly widens. And as time goes on, I'm not measuring it, but I'm guessing the gap widened a little bit more, but not that much. We see in the case of NXT, as soon as the 2.0 relaunch happened, NXT has fallen down the chart. This is not updated as of today's ratings information, but it's updated as of like 3 days ago's ratings information. I don't imagine it would look any different, especially considering we're doing a 90-day average. Anyway, another story we can see here is that Rampage really is in decline. I know Rampage started out super strong with the Punk episode, but we're using a 90-day average here. And we are more than 90 days into the existence of Rampage, right? It's been most of August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, half of April. We could say that half of August. That's 8. I'm using my fingers to count here. That's 8 months, right? 90 days is 3 months. So we're almost 3 times into Rampage having a line to measure on this chart. And Rampage flattened out for the early part of the year and then declined again. So this does include that good Rampage number that it did this past week, but nonetheless, it's a 90-day moving average. We can see Raw and SmackDown, a positive slope here. Raw and SmackDown doing better, but you can see probably some seasonality here. We might just be on, if we look at the January 2021, it does climb going towards WrestleMania time, just as it did this year. But the gap between Dynamite and Raw and SmackDown has narrowed, consistent with what we see in the ratings themselves, right? And this is, when does this start? This doesn't so much start at the end of the Wednesday Night War, which is right here. I guess it does. It does start to narrow. That's true. It does start to narrow. But when it starts to narrow even more is when Rampage starts appearing on the chart, which means CM Punk is there, quickly followed by Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole for that matter. So there's that. This is if we're thinking about the TV rights deal, these are the biggest stories in all of wrestling, in my opinion, economically speaking. When we think about TV rights value and the degree to which ratings play into that, which is large, this is what matters. Your position relative to viewership or not, relative to programming generally. We know all, oh my God, all TV is down. Well, the rankings can't be down. The rankings are even if all TV is down and you're all being affected by that attrition of cable subscribers relatively equally. I know there's different networks, but you're all being affected by this change in behavior. The rankings are still the rankings. Somebody has to rank number 1. Somebody has to rank number 2. Somebody has to rank number 451. So, what are the current values of WWE and AEW TV rights fees? As people may know, as I hope you've all memorized, Raw and SmackDown combined get $465 million average annual value across the time of October 2019 through September 2024. Gets a little bit more each year, but that's the average value, $465 million. This is purely my opinion here. I think it's the opinion of maybe some other stock analysts, but stock analysts. But my opinion is baseline expectation for what W is going to get, 1.5x increase. If it's less than that, stock price will be hurt. If it's more than that, stock price will jump. So how much money is that? If W gets a 1.5x increase on $465 million average annual value, that results in about $700 million. That's what the stock market, I think, is expecting. That's what I am expecting as a baseline. Again, could be more than that, could be less than that, but that's what I'm expecting. $700 million AAV. That's 0.7 billion. If you want to put it in promoter terms, Vince. So that's a lot of money. It doesn't take much more than that to get to $1 billion. But anyway, AEW currently gets about $44 million average annual value from the period of January 2020 through December 2024. So the timeline, by the way, which I can show you here, this is the timeline of these deals. There's a 1-year option. I expect it to be picked up if it hasn't been already. Anyway, I expect baseline expectation. Now, AEW is not a publicly traded company, so there's no stock price that's public that will move. But I expect a 3x increase. Okay, if I'm guessing, estimating, what would I expect? What would I be disappointed with? Less than a 3x increase. What would I be really happy about? More than a 3x increase. What does that equal? 44 million times 3 is 131. 131 AAV. That's for Rampage and Dynamite. 131. When I did this calculation, I was like, oh, that is a familiar number. That's what the 2014 value was for Raw and SmackDown. So before WWE got its 3.6x increase that made this number, 465, what it is today. So AEW, based on an assumption that they get a three times increase, would be getting WWE 2014 money. But that's such is the nature of media rights values. And I want to point out that, if we break this down by hour, because to give this a fair comparison, yes, W is getting way more than AEW is getting, but W is also providing more hours of weekly content. They're providing, and this just isolating Raw and SmackDown. We won't even get into NXT or anything else. But just for this amount of money that they're getting, this is 5 hours of weekly content, 2 hours of SmackDown, 3 hours of Raw. AEW is providing 3 hours. Okay, so 5 hours versus 3 hours. And when we break these prices down by hour of weekly content, still it is a 6 times difference per hour of content. WWE is getting $1.8 million per hour of core content. AEW getting just $300,000 for every hour of Dynamite you watch, for every hour of Rampage that you watch. And I did a weighted average here. Well, I did this weighted average won't matter yet. But for every hour of content, AEW is getting $300,000. That's pretty good. That's pretty good money. But W is getting 1.8 million, 6 times that. Anyway, now that makes some sense. We look at the viewership. We know that Raw and SmackDown are doing substantially better than Dynamite is, especially in total viewership, but also in the demo to a lesser extent. But if we look at the viewership, it's not that like the viewership is there's as wide of a difference in viewership as there is in the value, the price that the networks are paying these two brands for their respective content. The networks pay for each viewer, if you break it down that way, purely mathematically. This is not, it's not as if when the viewership goes up, they get paid more. But this is based on the viewership so far this year. WWE is getting just under $1 for every hour that somebody sits in front of the screen. This is total viewership. Every hour that you sit in front of the screen on linear TV, if you do, watching WWE Raw and SmackDown content, WWE gets 91 cents. 91 cents. Almost $1. Almost $1. But for every hour that you spend watching AEW, only 33 cents. A 2.7 times difference. So, again, WWE getting 6 times as much as AEW in payments, but only providing about 3 times the value per hour. Does that make sense? I think so, when we break it down by viewers. That's in total viewership. If we look at the demo, the difference is even greater. I'm questioning my math now. Anyway, say 4 times difference. I see. $2.64 per viewer hour in the demo. That's 4 times more than what AEW is getting. They're getting 4x. Yeah, I don't know. I've forgotten what I was trying to say here. Another great episode. But anyway, that's the point is I was trying to explain why does AEW get a higher multiple, but still substantially a lot less money than W is getting in terms of average annual value, despite the viewership being closer than the gap in value. So anyway, I was going to rant about Warner Brothers Discovery and how, oh my God, Warner Brothers Discovery has merged. Maybe that means, it reminds me of WCW. Remember when AOL Time Warner merged in 2001? Oh my God. And Jamie Kellner who hated wrestling, or somebody hated wrestling there, right? And they decided to cancel WCW. Does this mean the end? Could this mean the end, the cancellation of AEW? The most powerful people in wrestling aren't wrestling executives. Oh no, it's TV executives. And anyway, I think the fact that, if we go back to this, the fact that at least Dynamite, Rampage is in an unfavorable time slot, but at least Dynamite is ranking pretty highly here. So I think Dynamite's in a good position to be renewed. If Discovery was to not renew or to not bid aggressively for AEW in the next round, I think, what are they going to replace it with? Why would it be a smart move? What great program do they have that's going to deliver this kind of viewership or this kind of value? Maybe there's programming like the NHL that's going to do better ad rates, I would think, but not as good viewership. What's going to go in its place that's going to provide the same kind of value to TNT/TBS? I don't know what that would be. So we'll see. But I think just as likely as renewals at 3.3x for Dynamite, or 1.5x for Raw and SmackDown, is maybe these companies just get acquired. Now, I don't think Vince will sell in his lifetime, but I think that's got to be on the table, or at least something that the networks would want when they probably have enough cash on their balance sheet to be able to afford the acquisition of, in WWE's case, a $4 billion market capital company. It will take much more than that to get it out of Vince's hands. And who knows, you'd pay a lot less for AEW if Tony Khan is ready to give it up, or ready to cash in for a lot of money, and I would imagine keep control. Anyway, AEW now has a deal with Eurosport in India. Another reason why I think it's unlikely that Warner Media Discovery is going to be interested in renewing and paying substantially for AEW, paying an increase for AEW, is they're distributed across all these international markets too, in Germany, in France, in Latin America, on Space, and now those are all Warner Media properties, and AEW is now on Eurosport, which in India, which is a Discovery property, and thus the debut of Satnam Singh. A move maybe more for business partners than for fans, as we are used to in the world of WWE, where more and more of their money comes not from fans, but from business partners. And by the way, it's not like it's much of a difference for AEW. The majority of their money comes from TV partners, especially. I would think the majority comes from TV partners, and that's not the only kinds of partnerships that they have. As we will remember, the most powerful people in wrestling, the CEO, but then after that, the business partner. So AEW gets the majority of their revenue too from business partners if they can demonstrate the ability to satisfy both business partners and wrestling fans. I think they have so far, but the reason why this segment was received poorly, at least on Twitter, may have something to do with that, or at least that's the motivation behind it. Anyway, I will mercifully end this program now, provided there are no super chats to deal with. I don't even have the thing open. Oh my god. But anyway, I will run through this. Hit thumbs up, share, subscribe. I am still leading the board on the Discord on the Wrestlenomics channel. I guessed the rating correctly this week. I promise I didn't know what it was before I guessed it. And we will be back on Sunday with Chris Gullo at 11 a.m. Eastern, as always. And you can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. And I will talk to everyone next time. Bye.